Thank you for loving me, not loudly, not perfectly, but truly. Thank you for choosing me in the small moments, when no one was watching, when love wasn't easy, when staying would have been simpler than understanding. Your love didn't arrive like a storm, it came like a steady hand on my shoulder, saying, I'm here. And somehow, that changed everything. I stand here not to speak about romance as a dream, but love as a decision, a daily act of patience, presence, and care. You saw me as I am, not as who I pretend to be. You loved the silence in me, the cracks, the unfinished parts. And that kind of love teaches a person how to breathe again. This isn't just a thank you, this is a recognition of a love that heals without asking for applause, of a heart that stayed. Thank you for loving me in a way that never asked me to be louder than I am. Thank you for loving me without conditions that felt like contracts, without expectations that felt like weights. Your love arrived gently, like it understood that real things don't need to rush to be real. It found me where I stood, not where I was supposed to be, and it stayed long enough to learn my name in the language of my silences. There were days when I didn't know how to carry myself, when the world felt too sharp and I felt unfinished, still learning how to hold my own heart without dropping it. On those days, your love didn't try to fix me. It didn't lecture or hurry me into being better. It sat beside me and made room. It reminded me that growth doesn't come from pressure, but from patience, that becoming is not a performance, but a process. Thank you for seeing me clearly and choosing me anyway, for noticing the cracks and understanding they were places where light had already begun to enter. You never asked me to hide my fears or polish my imperfections. You treated my vulnerability like something valuable, something worth protecting. In a world that teaches us to armor up, your love felt like permission to breathe. I didn't always know how to receive that kind of care. Sometimes I mistook quiet for absence, softness for weakness. Sometimes I carried old lessons that told me love had to hurt to be real. But you stayed steady. You taught me that consistency can be romantic, that kindness can be powerful, that showing up is its own kind of bravery. You showed me that love doesn't need to shout to be heard. Thank you for the ordinary moments, the ones no one writes songs about, the shared pauses, the comfortable silences, the days that didn't sparkle, but still mattered. You made those moments sacred by being present in them, by listening without waiting to speak, by holding space instead of filling it. That's where I learned that love lives more in how we show up than in what we promise. When I doubted myself, you didn't argue me into confidence. You trusted me into it. You believed in me in ways that felt calm, not dramatic. You let me find my footing without pulling me forward or pushing me back. That kind of belief changes a person. It doesn't inflate the ego, it strengthens the spine. It teaches you to stand without hardening. Thank you for loving me on days when I wasn't easy to love, when I was quiet in the wrong way, when I carried the weight of my past into the present, when I needed time I didn't know how to ask for. You didn't keep score, you didn't make love transactional. You understood that some days, loving someone means letting them be human without punishment. I learned something important through you. That love is not a feeling we chase, but a practice we return to. It's in the way you checked in without interrogating, the way you cared without controlling, the way you respected my boundaries while still reaching for my hand. You showed me that safety is not boring, it's rare, it's precious, it's what allows joy to last. Thank you for the way you looked at me when I spoke, like my words mattered even when they stumbled. Thank you for hearing what I meant, not just what I said. You listened with your whole presence, and that taught me how to listen too, to you, to myself, to the quiet truth underneath the noise. Your love didn't arrive with instructions, it arrived with acceptance. It didn't demand perfection, it invited honesty. And in that invitation, I found courage. The courage to tell the truth about who I am, the courage to admit when I was afraid, the courage to stay open instead of shutting down. Love like that doesn't just connect two people, it reshapes them. There were moments when the world tried to convince me that tenderness was a liability, that being open would cost too much. But you proved the opposite. You showed me that tenderness is a skill, that gentleness requires strength, that choosing care again and again is one of the strongest decisions a person can make. Your love was never passive, it was intentional. Thank you for making me feel chosen without making me feel owned, for walking beside me instead of ahead of me, for matching my pace when I needed to slow down, and trusting me to catch up when I needed to find my own way. Love should feel like partnership, not pursuit. With you, it did. I think about the way you showed up when things were uncertain, when answers weren't clear, when patience was required. You didn't disappear into excuses or distractions. You stayed present. You stayed kind. You stayed curious. That consistency taught me that love isn't proven by grand gestures, but by reliability, by the simple act of being there when it matters. Thank you for the respect you gave my dreams, even when they were still forming. You didn't laugh at the parts that sounded impossible. You didn't rush me toward outcomes. You respected the process. You understood that people grow at different speeds and that love doesn't try to control the timeline. It trusts it. I'm grateful for the way your love made room for my past without letting it define my future. Uh, you didn't try to rewrite my story. You read it carefully and chose to continue it with me. You didn't compete with what came before. You focused on what we were building now. That kind of presence is rare, and it changes the shape of time. Thank you for teaching me that love can be calm and still be deep. That excitement doesn't have to come from chaos. That passion doesn't have to burn to be real. With you, love felt like a steady fire, warm, reliable, alive, something you can sit beside without fear. I didn't always know how to say this out loud. Gratitude sometimes feels too small for what the heart is trying to express. But I want you to know that your love mattered. It mattered in ways that are quiet and lasting. It mattered in how I wake up, in how I speak to myself, and how I show up for others. Because of you, I learned that love is not about being completed by another person, but about being supported as you become more yourself. You didn't try to fill my emptiness, you helped me discover my fullness. You reminded me that I was already whole, already worthy, already enough. Thank you for loving me like that, for choosing care over ego, presence over performance, truth over comfort. Your love didn't just touch my life, it changed how I understand love itself. It taught me that the most meaningful words are often lived, not spoken, and that sometimes the deepest thank you is carried not in a sentence, but in the way a heart learns to stay open, learns to trust, learns to keep choosing love even when the world suggests otherwise. Thank you for the kind of love that doesn't rush to explain itself, the kind that doesn't arrive with fireworks or demands, but with presence, with patience, with a quiet certainty that says, I'm here and I'm not leaving when things get complicated. Your love has always felt like that to me, like something steady enough to lean on without ever feeling heavy. I've learned that love isn't always loud. Sometimes it's just consistent. Sometimes it's the way someone remembers how you take your silence or notices when your smile is doing too much work. Your love paid attention to the details I didn't know how to speak out loud. It read between my pauses and stayed anyway. There's a strength in that kind of love that people don't talk about enough. It doesn't try to win, it doesn't try to dominate. It just shows up again and again, choosing care over pride. You showed me that real strength is gentle, and that gentleness doesn't mean fragile, it means intentional. I didn't always come to you as my best self. Sometimes I came tired, sometimes uncertain, sometimes carrying questions I hadn't answered yet. You didn't turn those moments into judgments. You treated them like part of the journey, like something we could hold together without breaking. Your love gave me space without distance. That's not easy to do. You let me grow without pulling away, and you stayed close without crowding me. You trusted me enough to let me be myself, and that trust changed how I see connection. It taught me that love doesn't need control to feel secure. Thank you for the patience you showed when my words weren't ready, for understanding that silence isn't absence, and reflection isn't rejection. You never filled the quiet with assumptions. You waited, and in that waiting you told me I was worth understanding fully. There's a calm that comes from being loved without performance, from knowing you don't have to earn affection by being impressive. With you, I didn't have to pretend to be stronger than I was, I could just be honest. And honesty felt safe. You loved me in the present, not in comparison to who I used to be or who I might become. You didn't hold my past against me, and you didn't place my future on a pedestal. You stayed with who I am, right here, and that kind of love grounds a person. It brings them home to themselves. I think about how your love never tried to hurry me through my healing. You didn't demand progress on a schedule. You understood that some things take time, and that time isn't wasted when it's spent becoming whole. You walked beside me, not ahead of me, and not behind me. Thank you for the respect in the way you loved. Respect for my boundaries, respect for my voice, respect for my individuality. You never confused love with possession. You never treated closeness like ownership. You showed me that love can be deep without being restrictive. There were moments when the world felt uncertain, when nothing felt solid, yet your presence was constant. Not dramatic, not overwhelming, just real. And that reality mattered more than anything grand. It reminded me that stability is one of the most romantic things a person can offer. You taught me that love isn't about fixing each other, it's about supporting each other while we do our own work. You didn't take responsibility for my wounds, but you didn't ignore them either. You stood with me, steady, while I learned how to carry them more gently. Thank you for the way you believed in me without needing to prove it out loud. Your belief didn't come with pressure, it came with trust. And trust has a way of unlocking parts of a person they didn't know were closed. I noticed how your love didn't disappear when things got uncomfortable, when conversations were difficult, when truth required vulnerability. You leaned in instead of pulling away. You chose honesty over ease, and that choice built something real between us. With you, love felt like partnership, not a power struggle, not a competition, just two people choosing to walk in the same direction, adjusting their steps when needed, matching each other's rhythm without losing themselves. That balance is rare, and I don't take it lightly. Thank you for loving me in ways that taught me how to love better. Not just you, but life. You softened parts of me that had learned to stay guarded. You reminded me that being open doesn't mean being unprotected, it means being brave. I carry the lessons of your love into everything now, into how I speak, how I listen, how I pause before reacting. You showed me that kindness isn't passive, it's an active choice made again and again, especially when it would be easier not to. Your love never asked me to be smaller so it could feel bigger. You never needed me to dim myself to make space for you. You encouraged my growth, even when it meant change, even when it meant uncertainty. That kind of support leaves a permanent mark. Thank you for the way you made room for joy without forcing it. You didn't demand happiness, you allowed it. You understood that joy shows up when it's ready, and that love doesn't disappear in the meantime. I think about how your love felt honest, no games, no hidden expectations, just clarity even when clarity was difficult. That honesty built trust and trust built peace. And peace is something I didn't know love could offer so generously. You didn't love me to escape your loneliness, you loved me from a place of wholeness. And that made our connection feel mutual, not dependent. Like two people choosing each other freely, not out of need, but out of recognition. Thank you for the calm reassurance of your presence, for the way you grounded moments that could have turned into chaos. You reminded me that not every emotion needs to be amplified to be valid, and not every disagreement needs to become a battle. Your love taught me how to stay, how to remain present when things feel uncertain, how to listen without preparing a defense, how to care without trying to control the outcome. Those lessons extend far beyond us. I'm grateful for the way you loved with intention, with awareness, with a sense of responsibility that never felt heavy, only sincere. You understood that love is not just a feeling, but a practice, something shaped by daily choices. Thank you for showing me that consistency is a form of devotion, that reliability can be romantic, that showing up matters more than saying the right thing. Your actions spoke in ways words never could. You didn't rush intimacy, you let trust build naturally. You understood that connection deepens when it's allowed to unfold at its own pace. That patience created something lasting, something that didn't need to be rushed to feel real. I carry gratitude for the way you made me feel seen without being exposed, known without being reduced. You understood my complexity and didn't try to simplify it. You held it with care. Your love gave me courage, not the loud kind, but the quiet courage to be honest, to be vulnerable, to keep my heart open even when it felt risky. That courage stays with me. Thank you for loving me in a way that respected both of us, in a way that honored individuality while building togetherness, in a way that felt sustainable, not consuming. I don't think love is meant to complete us. I think it's meant to support us while we complete ourselves, and your love did exactly that. It walked beside me, steady and patient, reminding me of who I already was becoming. Because of you, love feels less like something to chase and more like something to practice. Less like a question and more like a presence. Less like uncertainty and more like trust. And I'm grateful for the quiet moments, for the steady ones, for the love that didn't need to prove itself to anyone else, for the love that simply existed, strong enough to hold space, gentle enough to let me grow, patient enough to stay present in the becoming,